Hi guys, we're going to do a little math help here for the homework tonight. Hope this helps. Remember, we're talking about fractions, decimals, and percents, and how they are all the same thing. They all represent part of a whole. To use them in a word problem, sometimes you're going to want to convert one form to another to help you out, okay? So one thing I wanted to remind the class of is if you have, say, you want to find 10% of $25. Remember how we talked about this in school? You want to find 10% if you're being a cheapskate with your tip, and you want to find 10% to give a waitress a tip. Remember, you can just move this over one, so this decimal goes here. 10% of 25 is actually $2.50, okay? 5% would be half of that. So if you're finding 15%, you would find 5%, so half of 250, and you would add it to 10%, okay? We talked about that today. Now, your first problem says at a local swim meet, there are 150 total swimmers participating. 20% of the swimmers did freestyle events, 30% did backstroke, and the rest did the butterfly. How many did each stroke? Freestyle, backstroke, or butterfly? Let's take the 20%. 20% of the swimmers were freestyle. 20% of 150. Remember, the of means to multiply, okay? And remember that 20% also means 20 out of a 100, because it's a percentage. And if you want to write that as a decimal, if it's easier for you, you want to write it like that, okay? So you could either multiply your decimal times 150, but you can also find, because it's 20%, you can find that easily, because 150, 10% of 150, 10% of 150 is actually 15, because remember there's a decimal right here, and you're just going to move down the decimal, and it will go from 150 to 15. So if 10% is 15, 20% is double that, because 10 doubled is 20, 15 doubled is 30. In the same respect, 5% would be half of 15, which would be 7.5. And 15% would be 15 plus 7.5. Okay, so if you have to find anything with percentages that way, that's not easy. You can do it that way. So this way you can always find something that is 10 or 20 or 30 or 40, anything that ends in 0, and at the same time anything that ends in 5 by finding half and adding it to the one directly next to it. Okay? So that problem number 1 shouldn't be too bad. Problem number 2 is going to ask you to do a little work with eighths. And what I would do is when you add up 1/8 and 3/8 and 2/8, you are going to get 6/8, and so 2 will be left over for the Tetris fish. So 2/8 will be left over, and you've got to figure out that you can easily figure out that 2/8 is equivalent to 1/4, which is equivalent to 0.25 or 25%, and then that might make things easier when you want to find 25% of, which means multiplication, of 72, okay? You can do the multiplication, 0.25 times 72, or you can divide 72, and find 1/4 of 72, okay? So that will be on number 2. Number 3, you're going to do just the same as you did number 1, that same way, because you're finding 30% of students, so find 10 and do that 3 times. And then on the back there is a problem that talks about notebooks and files and watches and balls, and just the only trick to that you want to look at is the items, the notebooks, ball, file, and watch. The cost is for one of those. So if you have 8 of each, you want to multiply those by 8 and then add up. Okay, there's some little homework help for you tonight. Good luck, and don't forget to smile. Have a good night. Also, don't forget to read. There you are reading a book, smiling. Oh, and don't forget to look at your moon. Okay? See you tomorrow. Bye.